What if I told you that the greatest golf swing of all time was built to fix one devastating mistake? Ben Hogan's severe hook nearly derailed his career before it truly began. Through complete reinvention of swing mechanics, Hogan transformed himself from a struggling pro into a legend who captured 9 majors and revolutionized the sport. The fascinating part is what Hogan actually discovered during this transformation. His techniques are often misinterpreted by those trying to replicate his success. Today, we're uncovering the true essence of Hogan's approach and showing how these same principles can dramatically improve your game, regardless of your current skill level. February 2nd, 1949, a date that would forever change the trajectory of golf history. The morning fog hung thick on a remote stretch of highway near Van Horn, Texas. Ben Hogan and his wife Valerie were making their way back to Fort Worth after a tournament in Phoenix. Their 1949 Cadillac cruised steadily through the haze when suddenly headlights emerged from the mist. A Greyhound bus attempting to pass another vehicle had drifted into their lane. In that split second before impact, Ben made a decision that saved his wife's life. He threw himself across the passenger seat, shielding Valerie with his own body as nearly 2 tons of metal collided head-on with their car. The crash was devastating. While Valerie escaped with minor injuries, Ben absorbed the brunt of the impact. His body was shattered, a fractured pelvis, broken collarbone, ankle, and ribs. The doctors at the small Van Horn hospital quickly transferred him to Hotel Dieu Hospital in El Paso. As medical teams worked, a more sinister threat emerged. Life-threatening blood clots formed in his battered body. The prognosis darkened daily. Doctors doubted Hogan would ever walk again, let alone return to golf. His survival hung in the balance. For 59 long days, Hogan lay in that hospital bed, his body broken, but his mind remarkably clear. Like a phoenix whose physical form was consumed, yet whose essence remained untouched. Hogan's competitive spirit soared even as his body failed him. Unable to swing a club, he turned inward, mentally dissecting every aspect of his golf swing. Hour after hour, he visualized his technique, identifying inefficiencies and contemplating adjustments that would accommodate his new limitations. During this period of isolation, as Hogan drifted between sleep and consciousness one night, he experienced what he could only describe as a vision. In this dreamlike state, he saw the figure of a Scottish golfer demonstrating a distinctive move, a subtle adjustment that would later become the foundation of what golf enthusiasts would call Hogan's famous secret. When Hogan finally left the hospital, his rehabilitation was brutal and unforgiving. Each morning before dawn, he would wake at 5 a.m. to soak his damaged legs in hot water simply to gain enough mobility to stand. His first attempts to walk were exercises in pure determination, each step a victory against pain. As he slowly regained strength, he began rebuilding his swing. The injuries had permanently altered his body. His left side would never function quite the same again. Rather than fight against these limitations, Hogan embraced them, using them as catalysts to refine his technique. The accident reduced his flexibility and strength, forcing him to develop a more efficient, precise swing that required less physical effort but produced more consistent results. Every adjustment was crafted with surgical precision. His new swing eliminated weaknesses that had existed before the accident. During this period, Hogan formulated what would later be hinted at in Life magazine, where he cryptically stated, "I have a secret. It is easy to see if I tell you where to look." This statement launched decades of speculation about his technical breakthrough. The forced pause caused by the accident became the catalyst for Hogan's greatest innovations in swing mechanics. Then came the moment that transcended sport. Just 16 months after doctors questioned whether he would ever walk again, Ben Hogan stood on the 18th green at Marion Golf Club, completing an almost superhuman comeback to win the 1950 US Open. The image of Hogan, his face showing both pain and triumph as he struck his one-iron approach on the final day, became one of golf's most iconic photographs. This victory represented the culmination of a journey from the brink of death to the pinnacle of sport, a testament to the power of human resilience and proof that sometimes our greatest setbacks lead to our most profound breakthroughs. While Hogan's triumph over his devastating accident remains one of sport's greatest comeback stories, long before that bus collision, he faced another battle that nearly derailed his promising career. The man who would later be revered as golf's most precise striker once struggled with a swing flaw so severe and unpredictable that it haunted him even in his dreams. In the early days of his professional career, Hogan wasn't the confident, calculating champion we remember today. Instead, he was a talented but tormented golfer fighting an invisible unstoppable demon. His nemesis? A wild, uncontrollable hook shot that sent his ball veering sharply left just when he needed it to fly straight. This persistent nightmare threatened everything he hoped to achieve in golf. The hook was so devastating that Hogan himself named it the terror of the fairway. Picture standing on the tee, knowing that at any moment your ball might suddenly curve violently left, disappearing into trouble, taking your confidence with it. For a professional trying to make a living from tournament golf, this inconsistency was career-threatening. The unpredictability devastated him psychologically. Hogan might hit 3 perfect shots in a row, then suddenly watch helplessly as his ball hooked dramatically off target. During the 1938 Oakland Open, Hogan led going into the final round before a series of hooks cost him the championship and a desperately needed payday. The burden became almost unbearable. Hogan later admitted he would wake up in cold sweats, his sleep disturbed by nightmares of hooks sailing into trouble. The technical cause was clear. His club face closed too much at impact while his swing path moved excessively from inside to outside. This combination sent the ball spinning dramatically leftward. For a player with championship aspirations, this flaw was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode at the most crucial moments. Each failure eroded his belief that he could compete at the highest level. Like many golfers, Hogan initially tried making minor adjustments, tweaking his grip, adjusting his stance, or manipulating the club face during his swing. These band-aid solutions created a cycle of temporary hope, followed by crushing disappointment when the hook inevitably returned at the worst possible moment. This pushed Hogan to the brink of abandoning his professional dreams altogether. The breakthrough came when Hogan realized something profound. He needed to completely rebuild his swing from the ground up. Rather than continuing to fight his natural tendency to hook the ball, Hogan made a counterintuitive decision that would change golf history. He would redesign his entire swing to produce the opposite shot shape, a controlled fade that moved gently from left to right. This meant stripping down his swing to its foundation and rebuilding it piece by piece through countless hours on the practice range, hitting ball after ball until his hands literally bled. For a professional already competing for tournament paychecks, this enormous gamble meant sacrificing short-term results for the promise of long-term excellence. The transformation wasn't quick or easy. Hogan endured months of struggle as his body and mind adapted to this new swing pattern. There were setbacks and moments of doubt, but slowly, a more reliable ball flight emerged, one that he could count on under the intense pressure of competition. The wild hooks became less frequent, the cold sweat nightmares subsided, and most importantly, his confidence grew with each successful shot. What Hogan discovered through this painful process became the foundation for his greatest success. By embracing a controlled fade, he found consistency that had previously eluded him. The fade might not have been as long as his natural hook, but he could predict where the ball would land. And in tournament golf, knowing where your ball will finish is far more valuable than occasional extra distance. That controlled fade became Hogan's signature, but something far more elusive became his legacy. For 7 decades, golf's greatest minds have been consumed by a singular obsession, uncovering what Hogan himself once called his secret. The quest to decode Hogan's swing mechanics has sparked more theories, debates, and golf shop arguments than perhaps any other topic in the game's history. Hogan deliberately cultivated this mystery. In a 1955 Life magazine interview, he casually dropped a bombshell that would echo through generations of golf instruction. He mentioned having a secret to his swing, then refused to elaborate further. Like a master chess player, he had set the golf world in motion with a single move, then sat back to watch the theories multiply. The search for this hidden key took on almost mythical proportions. Each theory represented a piece of a complex puzzle, with instructors offering different arrangements of the same pieces. Some swore the secret lay in Hogan's cupped left wrist at the top of his backswing. Others analyzed frame-by-frame footage, convinced his hip rotation contained the answer. A popular theory pointed to the pressure points in Hogan's grip, while some focused on the subtle positions of his feet throughout his swing. When Hogan published 5 Lessons, The Modern Fundamentals of Golf in 1957, many thought the mystery would finally be solved. The book delivered precise explanations of his techniques, with illustrations breaking down every component of his swing. Yet something felt incomplete. Readers searched for that one magical move that would transform their games. But the question remained, was Hogan still holding something back? Had he revealed everything? Or was the most crucial element still hidden between the lines? Looking at the evidence today, Hogan's system resembles a finely calibrated watch, with 3 essential gears working in perfect synchronization. The first crucial component was his grip, a technical aspect he modified specifically to combat his hook. After years of struggling with a strong grip that encouraged the club face to close through impact, Hogan shifted to a more neutral, even slightly weak left-hand position. This adjustment was revolutionary at a time when most players were taught to maintain a strong grip. By weakening his grip, Hogan could keep the club face more open through impact, minimizing those devastating hooks. The second component was his distinctive setup position. Unlike most players who squared their bodies to the target line, Hogan positioned himself with slightly open shoulders and hips. His front foot turned outward at roughly a 22-degree angle, facilitating a more powerful hip rotation on the downswing. This open stance was a deliberate engineering of his body position to promote the fade ball flight he had worked so hard to develop. The third component, his downswing sequence, completed the mechanism. As Hogan transitioned from backswing to downswing, his right elbow would drop down into his right ribcage, while his hips fired forward toward the target with remarkable speed. This combination created the lag and leverage that generated his extraordinary power. This precise sequencing, the timing relationship between his lower body rotation and the delivery of the club head, is what many analysts now believe contained the essence of Hogan's secret. What becomes clear is that Hogan's true secret wasn't a single magical move, but a complete integrated system. Each element worked in harmony with the others. Remove any component, and the system would collapse. This explains why golfers who tried to copy isolated parts of Hogan's technique failed. The true lesson of Hogan's technique is that there are no shortcuts. What he discovered was a comprehensive approach to controlling the club face consistently through impact, with every element serving that singular purpose. While Hogan's system eliminated the hook that nearly derailed his career, it revealed a powerful contradiction in the physics of golf. Picture this: a slender man, barely 5 feet 9 inches and weighing only 145 pounds, consistently out-driving competitors who towered over him physically. In an era when power was thought to come primarily from size and strength, Hogan's distance seemed almost supernatural. Players like Sam Snead, with their imposing physical presence, should have dominated the distance game according to the prevailing wisdom. Yet this modestly built Hogan was bombing drives past many of them. The golf world couldn't make sense of it. How could someone with such apparent physical limitations generate that kind of raw power? The answer wasn't in his muscles, but in his understanding of rotational physics, something Hogan grasped intuitively decades before launch monitors and swing analysis technology existed. While others relied on brute force, Hogan had transformed his body into a precision machine that maximized every ounce of energy transfer from his core to the club head. The first piece of this power puzzle was Hogan's extraordinary ability to create lag in his downswing. Lag, the delay between the rotation of the lower body and the delivery of the club head, functioned like a coiled spring in Hogan's swing, storing energy that would release explosively at impact. While his contemporaries muscled the ball with their arms, Hogan harnessed physics to do the heavy lifting. What made this lag even more effective was his distinctive right elbow position during the downswing. Where many players let their right elbow fly away from their body, Hogan pulled his right elbow down into his ribcage, creating what coaches now call a connected swing. This move improved consistency and multiplied power. By maintaining that elbow connection, Hogan ensured energy transferred efficiently rather than leaking away through flawed mechanics. Perhaps most surprising was how Hogan initiated his downswing. While many of his era started their downswing with their shoulders or hands, Hogan fired his lower body first, and with remarkable aggression. This created a rotational force called the X factor, the differential between hip rotation and shoulder rotation that generates tremendous torque. Despite his modest frame, Hogan's lower body action created rotational speeds that even physically imposing players struggled to match. A true David versus Goliath dynamic where technique overcame raw strength. This aggressive hip action naturally pulled the club into an inside path through impact, allowing Hogan to compress the ball with incredible efficiency. Each swing was a masterclass in energy conservation, with nothing wasted and everything perfectly synchronized. Hogan's power generation combined seemingly contradictory elements. He incorporated fade components, typically associated with accuracy rather than distance, yet paired them with exceptional rotational power. This fusion created a unique power signature that delivered both distance distance and precision. Modern analysis reveals that Hogan's swing incorporated an upward exit of the golf club rather than driving it low and left after impact as many modern players do. This movement helped him maintain his speed through the hitting zone rather than dissipating it immediately after contact. Hogan leveraged centrifugal force, the outward pulling energy created by rotation, to generate power without extra physical effort. This understanding of biomechanics allowed him to compete effectively against players who seemingly had every physical advantage over him. While others tried to hit the ball harder, Hogan hit it smarter. The genius of Hogan's power generation was in his integrated system. Each component, from setup to lag to elbow position to aggressive hip rotation, worked in concert with every other element. There were no wasted motions, no energy leaks, and no unnecessary flourishes. Every movement served the singular purpose of delivering the club head with maximum efficiency and power. Now, behind Hogan's mechanical masterpiece was a brutal truth that few golfers of his era were willing to accept. When other players finished their rounds and headed to the clubhouse, Hogan was just getting started, sometimes practicing until his hands became raw and bloodied, then wrapping them in bandages to continue. His dedication represented a complete reimagining of what it meant to improve at golf. In the era before Hogan, the concept of practice barely existed in professional golf. Players would show up, play their rounds, maybe hit a few balls before teeing off, and call it a day. The prevailing attitude was that talent was innate. You either had it or you didn't. Playing more rounds was considered the path to improvement, not isolated skill development. This casual approach meant golfers rarely focused on specific technical elements that needed refinement, instead hoping that general play would somehow iron out their flaws. What made Hogan's approach revolutionary was the purposeful structure behind every minute of practice. He transformed practice from casual activity into a scientific laboratory. While his contemporaries enjoyed drinks at the 19th hole, Hogan dissected his swing, breaking it down into component parts and practicing each element with scientific precision. He hit dozens of balls with a specific goal, studying the results, making adjustments, and repeating until he'd solved the problem. His peers watched in bewilderment, unable to comprehend the method behind what appeared to be madness. I practiced to make the swing as automatic as possible, Hogan would explain. Under pressure, you don't have time to think. If you have to think about your grip or your stance or what have you, you've lost it. This concept, that perfect practice creates automatic performance, was revolutionary in a sport that had previously relied more on feel and natural ability than on systematic training. Hogan understood that quality trumped quantity. Every shot had an objective, whether testing a slight change in weight distribution or confirming the consistency of his club path. This methodical approach allowed Hogan to experiment, analyze results, and make refinements with surgical precision. His early career reveals much about his revolutionary mindset. With limited finances, young Hogan practiced under a single light bulb when he couldn't afford range balls. He would practice his swing motion in the dirt, focusing entirely on the mechanics rather than the results. This formative experience instilled in him a deep appreciation for the fundamentals that would shape his approach throughout his career. Even when fame and success came, Hogan maintained this grinding work ethic, never forgetting the lessons learned during those humble beginnings. An exchange with his wife perfectly captured his philosophy. When Valerie asked him why he didn't practice putting more, Hogan responded that he was focused on hitting the ball closer to the hole instead. This wasn't dismissing putting's importance, but highlighting his strategic approach to scoring. Hogan understood that even marginal improvements in ball striking could eliminate the need for difficult putts altogether. This integrated thinking made his practice sessions remarkably effective. The impact of Hogan's practice revolution extended far beyond his own career. As his success mounted, other players began to take notice. What once seemed excessive slowly became the new standard. By the time Hogan's career was winding down, the practice habits of professional golfers had transformed dramatically. The casual, play-focused approach was replaced by structured practice sessions, targeted drills, and dedicated time for skill development. Without realizing it, Hogan had fundamentally changed how golfers approached improvement. Ben Hogan's story is about the human capacity to transform. After his devastating accident in 1949, many thought his career was over. Instead, Hogan used this setback as a catalyst for reinvention, completely overhauling his approach to the game. This resilience in the face of adversity has made him one of golf's most inspiring figures. Hogan's methods continue to influence modern golf instruction decades later. His emphasis on the neutral grip, flattened swing plane, and aggressive lower body movement revolutionized revolutionized our understanding of the golf swing. Through his sacrifices and relentless focus on precision, Hogan transformed golf forever. Consider experimenting with his techniques in your own practice routine. You might discover improvements you never thought possible. What are your thoughts on Ben Hogan? Let us know in the comments. If you love golf content, take a swing at that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.